A hand clamped over Lenny's mouth. A voice whispered harshly, "Len, wake up." She opened her eyes. "We fell asleep. Someone's here." Lenny gasped into Matthew's palm. It had stopped raining. Sunlight poured through the skylight. Outside, she heard a truck engine, heard the rattle of the metal bed on the axle as the truck rolled over the ground. "Oh my God," Lenny said. She scrambled over Matthew, snatched up some clothes, and dressed quickly. She was almost to the railing when she heard the door open. Dad walked in, stopped, looked down. He was standing on the wet heap of her dress. Shit. She launched herself over the side of the railing and half climbed, half slid down the loft ladder. Dad bent down for her soggy dress, lifted it up. Water dripped from the eyelet hem. I got caught in that squall," Lenny said. Her heartbeat was so hard she was breathless, dizzy. She glanced around for anything that might give them away and saw Matthew's boots. She let out a little cry. The rack to Dad's left was full of guns, the shelf beneath them layered with boxes of ammunition. He barely had to turn, reach out, and he'd be armed. Lenny rushed over and grabbed her soaking wet dress. Mama frowned. Her gaze followed Lainey's, landed on the boots. Her eyes widened. She looked at Lainey and then at the loft. Her face went pale. "Why did you wear your good dress?" Dad asked. Girls are funny that way, aren't?" Mama said, sidling sideways, blocking Dad's view of the boots. Dad looked around. His nostrils flared. Lainey was reminded of a predator on the scent. "Something smells different in here." Lainey hung her dress up on a hook by the door. "It's the picnic I packed for us. I wanted to surprise you." Dad walked over to the table, flipped open the picnic basket, looked inside. "There are only 2 plates." "I got hungry and ate mine. That's for you guys. I thought you'd enjoy it after the haul to Sterling." A creak from upstairs. Dad frowned, stared up at the loft, headed toward the ladder. "Sit still, Matthew." Dad touched the loft ladder, looked up, frowned. Lainey saw him lift a foot, place it on the bottom rung. Mama bent down, picked up Matthew's boots, and dropped them in the big cardboard boot box by the door. She did it in a gliding single motion, and then slipped in beside Dad. She said, "Let's show Lainey the snow machine, loud enough for Matthew to hear. It's parked out over by the goat pen." Dad let go of the loft ladder and turned to them. There was a strange look in his eyes. Did he suspect? "Sure, come on." Lainey followed her dad to the door. When he opened it, she glanced back, looked up at the loft. "Go, Matthew," she thought. "Run." Mama held Lainey's hand tightly as they walked across the deck and down into the grass, as if she feared Lainey might turn and run. In the cove, Matthew's aluminum boat captured the sunlight, glittered silver against the shore. The sudden squall had scrubbed the landscape, left everything shiny. Light glinted off a million drops of water, on blades of grass and wildflowers. Lenny said something quickly, she didn't even know what, just something to make her dad turn to her and away from the beach. "There she is," he said when they came to the rusted trailer hitched to the truck. A dented snow machine sat there, its seat a torn-up mess, missing its headlight. "Duct tape will fix that seat so it's practically new." Lenny thought she heard the cabin door click open and the creak of a footfall on the deck. "It's great," she yelled. "We can use it for ice fishing and caribou hunting. It'll come in handy to have 2 snow machines." She heard the distinct whine of an outboard motor starting up and the scree of it winding up for speed. Dad pushed Lenny aside. "Is that a boat in our cove?" Below, the aluminum skiff was planed high, pointed bow lifted proudly out of the water, speeding for the point. Lenny held her breath. There was no doubt it was Matthew. His blonde hair, his brand-new boat. Would Dad recognize him? "Damn tourists," Dad said at last, turning away. "Those rich college kids think they own this state in the summer. I'm putting up no trespassing signs." They'd done it. Gotten away with it. "We did it, Matthew." "Lenny!" Her mama's voice, sharp. She sounded angry, or maybe scared. Mama and Dad were both staring at her. "What?" Lenny said. "Your dad was talking to you," Mama said. I smiled easily. "Oops, sorry." Dad said,
I guess you were wool gathering, as my old man used to say. Lenny shrugged. Just thinking. About what? Lenny heard the tone change in his voice, and it concerned her. She saw now how intently he was staring at her. Maybe they hadn't gotten away with it after all. Maybe he knew. Maybe he was toying with her. Oh, you know teenagers, Mama said, her voice fluttery. I am asking Lenny, not you, Cora. I was thinking it would be fun to go out, spend the day together. Maybe try our luck at Peterson's Resort on the Kenai. We've always had good luck there.
Good thought. Dad stepped back from the new snow machine, glanced down the driveway. Well, it's summer. I have work to do. He left them standing there alone, went to the tool shed, and retrieved his chainsaw. Hefting it over his shoulder, he headed toward the driveway and disappeared into the trees. Mama and Lenny stood there, barely breathing, until they heard the chainsaw whir to life. Mama turned to Lenny, whispered harshly, "Stupid, stupid, stupid. You could have gotten caught." We fell asleep. Fatal mistakes often look ordinary. Come, Mama said, leading her into the cabin. Sit by the fire, I'll comb your hair. It's a mess. You're lucky he's not one to notice a thing like that. Lenny grabbed a three-legged stool and dragged it over to the wood stove. She sat down on it, hooking her bare feet on the bottom rung, unbraiding her hair as she waited. Mama pulled a wide-toothed comb from the blue coffee can on her makeshift vanity and slowly began combing the tangles out of Lenny's waist-length hair. Then she massaged Lenny's scalp with oil and smoothed some of the fragrant balm of Gilead rub they made from the buds onto Lenny's rough hands. You think you got away with it this time, and so you want to see Matthew again. That's what you were really thinking, right? Of course Mama knew. I'll be smarter next time, Lenny said. There won't be a next time, Lenny. Mama took Lenny by the shoulders, turned her around on the stool. You will wait until college, like we talked about. We will do as we planned. In September, you'll see Matthew in Anchorage and start your life. I'll die if I don't see him. No, you won't. Please, Lenny, think about me instead of yourself. Lenny was ashamed of herself, embarrassed by her selfishness. I'm sorry, Mama. You're right. I don't know what came over me. Sex changes everything, Mama said quietly. A week later, while Mama and Leanie were eating oatmeal for breakfast, the cabin door opened. Dad strode inside, his dark hair and flannel shirt dusted with wood chips. Come with me, both of you. Hurry. Leanie followed her parents out of the cabin and toward the driveway. Dad was walking fast, really covering ground. Mama stumbled along beside him, struggling to keep up on the spongy ground. Leanie heard her mother say, "Oh my God," in a whisper, and Leanie looked up. The wall her dad had been building all summer was in front of them, finished. Plank after plank of newly milled wood ran in a straight line, topped in coiled razor wire. It looked like something out of the gulag, but that wasn't the worst of it. Now there was a gate across the driveway. A length of heavy metal chain kept the gate closed. A metal lock hung from loops in the chain. Leanie saw the key hanging from a chain around her father's throat. Dad pulled Mama in close. He was smiling now. He leaned in, whispered something in Mama's ear, and kissed the small purple bruise at the base of her throat. Now it's just us, in here, cut off from the whole damn backstabbing world, he said. We'll be safe now. Fear, Lenny learned, was not the small, dark closet she'd always imagined. Walls pressed in close, a ceiling you bumped your head on, a floor cold to the touch. No. Fear was a mansion, one room after another, connected by endless hallways. In the days following the closing of the gate with its rattling chain, Lenny learned the feel of those rooms. At night, in her bed, she lay in the loft and tried not to sleep, because sleep brought on nightmares. The fear she battled during daylight besieged her at night. She dreamed of her death in 100 ways, drowning, falling through ice, plummeting down a mountainside, being shot in the head. Metaphors, all of them. The death of every dream she'd ever had and those she'd yet to dream. Dad hovered beside them all the time, talking as if nothing were wrong,
in a good humor for the first time since his banishment from the Harlan place. He teased, he laughed, he worked alongside them. At night, Lenny lay listening to the sound of her parents' voices, of their lovemaking. Mama was good at pretending everything was normal. Lenny had lost that childhood ability. What she thought, over and over and over again, was, "We need to run."
"We have to leave him," Lenny said on Saturday morning, a week to the day since he'd locked the gate shut. It was the first time Dad had left them alone together. Mama paused, her hands softening on the pile of dough she was kneading. "He'll kill me," she whispered. "Don't you get it, Mama? He's going to kill you in here, sooner or later. Think about winter coming, the dark, the cold, and us in here, locked behind that wall. He's not going to work the pipeline this winter. It'll be just him and us in the dark. Who will stop him or help us?" Mama glanced nervously at the door. "Where would we go?" Large Marge offered to help, so did the Walkers. "Not Tom. That would make it worse." "College starts in 3.5 weeks, Mama. I have to leave as soon as I can. Will you go with me? Maybe you should go without me." Lenny had known this was coming. She had wrestled with it and finally come to an answer. "I have to go, Mama. I can't live this way, but I need you. I'm afraid I won't be able to leave you." "Peas in a pod," Mama said, sounding sad, but she understood. They had always been together. "You need to go. I want you to go. I couldn't forgive myself if you didn't. So what's your plan?" "The first chance we get, we run. Maybe he goes hunting and we take the boat. Whatever the opportunity is, we take it. If we're still here when the first leaf falls, it's all over. So we just run with nothing? We run with our lives." Mama glanced away. It was a long, long time before she nodded and said, "I'll try." It was not the answer Lenny wanted, but it was the best she was going to get. She only prayed that when the opportunity for escape arose, Mama would go with her.
The weather began to change. Here and there, bright green leaves turned golden, tangerine, scarlet. Birch trees that had been invisible all year, lost amid the other trees, appeared boldly in the forefront, their bark white as the wings of a dove, their leaves like a million candle flames. With every leaf that changed color, Lenny's tension increased. It was nearing the end of August now, early for autumn to arrive, but Alaska was capricious that way. Although she and Mama had never spoken of their escape plan again, it lived in the air between sentences. Every time Dad left the cabin, they looked at each other, and in that look, a question. Is this the time? Today, Lenny and her mother were making blueberry syrup when Dad came in from outside. He was dirty and sweaty with a fine layer of black dust on his damp face. For the first time, Lenny noticed gray strands in his beard. He wore his hair in a low, haphazard ponytail and had tied a bicentennial bandana across his forehead. He came forward, his rubber boots clomping on the plywood floor. He went into the kitchen, saw what Mama was making for dinner. "Again?" he said, peering down at the salmon croquettes. "No vegetables?" "I'm conserving. We're out of flour and low on rice. I've told you that," Mama said wearily. "If you'd let me go to town." "You should go to Homer, Dad. Stock up for winter," Lenny said, hoping she sounded casual. "I don't think it's safe to leave you two alone here." "The wall keeps us safe, Dad." "Not completely. At high tide, someone could come in by boat. Who knows what could happen when I'm gone? Maybe we should all go. Get what we need from that bitch in town." Mama looked at Lenny. "This is it," Lenny's gaze said. The weather began to change. Here and there, bright green leaves turned golden, tangerine, scarlet. Birch trees that had been invisible all year, lost amid the other trees, appeared boldly in the forefront, their bark white as the wings of a dove, their leaves like a million candle flames. With every leaf that changed color, Lenny's tension increased. It was nearing the end of August now, early for autumn to arrive, but Alaska was capricious that way. Although she and Mama had never spoken of their escape plan again, it lived in the air between sentences. Every time Dad left the cabin, they looked at each other, and in that look, a question. Is this the time? Today, Lenny and her mother were making blueberry syrup when Dad came in from outside. He was dirty and sweaty with a fine layer of black dust on his damp face. For the first time, Lenny noticed gray strands in his beard. He wore his hair in a low, haphazard ponytail and had tied a bicentennial bandana across his forehead. He came forward, his rubber boots clomping on the plywood floor. He went into the kitchen, saw what Mama was making for dinner. "Again?" he said, peering down at the salmon croquettes. "No vegetables?" "I'm conserving. We're out of flour and low on rice. I've told you that," Mama said wearily. "If you'd let me go to town." "You should go to Homer, Dad. Stock up for winter," Lenny said, hoping she sounded casual. "I don't think it's safe to leave you two alone here." "The wall keeps us safe, Dad." "Not completely. At high tide, someone could come in by boat. Who knows what could happen when I'm gone? Maybe we should all go. Get what we need from that bitch in town." Mama looked at Lenny. "This is it," Lenny's gaze said.
Mama shook her head. Her eyes widened. Lenny understood her mother's fear. They had talked about the both of them sneaking away while he was gone, not running away while he was with them. But the weather was changing. The nights were growing cold, which meant that winter was approaching. Classes at U of A started in less than a week. This was their chance to run, if they planned it right. "Let's go," Dad said. "Right now." He clapped his hands. At the sharp sound, Mama flinched. Lenny glanced longingly at her bug-out bag, full, always, of everything she needed to survive in the wild. She couldn't bring it without arousing suspicion. They would have to make their escape with nothing except the clothes they were wearing. Dad grabbed a shotgun from the rack by the door and held it over his shoulder. Was it a warning? "Let's go." Lenny went to her mother, placed a hand on her thin wrist, felt how she was trembling. "Come on, Mama," Lenny said evenly. They walked to the cabin door. Lenny couldn't help stopping, turning back just for a second to stare at the cabin's warm, cozy interior. For all the pain and heartache and fear, this was the only real home she'd ever known. She hoped she would never see it again. How sad that her hope felt like loss. In the truck, seated between her parents on the ragged bench seat, Lenny could sense her mother's fear. It gave off a sour smell. Lenny wanted to reassure her, say it would be okay, that they'd escape and move to Anchorage and everything would be fine. But she just sat there, breathing shallowly, holding on, hoping that when the time came to run, they would make their feet move. Dad started up the truck and drove out to the gate. There, he stopped, got out, left his door open, and went to the gate, grabbing the lock. He removed the key from around his neck and fit it into the lock, giving it a hard turn. "This is it," Lenny said to her mother. "In town, we are going to run. The ferry docks in 40 minutes. We'll find a way to be on it. It won't work. He'll catch us. Then we'll go to Large Marge. She'll help us. You'd risk her life, too?" The huge metal lock clanked open. Dad pushed the gate open, over the bumpy muskeg, until the main road was visible again. "We might only get one chance," Mama said, chewing worriedly on her lower lip. "It better be the right one, or we wait." Lenny knew it was good advice, but she didn't know if she could wait anymore. Now that she'd allowed herself to actually think about freedom, the idea of returning to captivity seemed impossible. "We can't wait, Mama. The leaves are falling. Winter could come early this year." Dad climbed into the cab and shut the door. They drove forward. When they'd passed through the gate, Lenny twisted around in her seat, stared through the guns in the gun rack. Words in black had been spray-painted across the newly cut wood. "Stay out. No trespassing. Violators will be shot." She made a mental note of the fact that he hadn't closed the gate behind them.
They turned onto the main road and rumbled past the arch at the entrance to Walkerland, past Marge Birdsall's driveway. Just past the airstrip, new gravel had been laid down, crunching beneath their tires. Up ahead was the newly painted wooden bridge, where a few people dressed in colorful rain jackets stood at the rail, staring down at the river, pointing at the bright red salmon swimming through the clear water on their way to spawn and die. Dad rolled down his window, yelled, "Go back to California!" as they rumbled past, spitting black smoke at them. In town, a barricade ran down the middle of Main Street. A collection of sawhorses and white buckets and orange cones kept tourists away from the backhoe that was digging a trench in front of the diner. Behind it, running the length of the street, was a yawning scar of cut-up earth with dirt piled alongside. Dad stomped on the brakes so hard the old truck came to a skidding stop in the tall grass on the side of the road. From here, they could see the backhoe operator, Tom Walker. Dad wrenched the truck into park and shut off the engine. Slamming his body into the reluctant door, he jumped out of the truck and slammed the door shut behind him. Just as Lenny said, "Stay with me, Mama, hold my hand," Dad appeared at the passenger door, opened it, and grabbed Mama's wrist and pulled her out of the truck. Mama looked back, wild-eyed. "Go," she mouthed. Dad yanked on Mama's wrist, made her stumble forward to keep up with him. "Shit," Lenny said.
She saw her parents making their way through the few tourists that were here on this bright, late August day, her dad elbowing his way harder than he needed to, pushing people aside. Leanie couldn't help herself. She sidled out of the truck and followed them. Maybe there was still a way to get Mama away from him. They didn't need long, just enough time to disappear. Hell, they'd steal a boat if they had to. Maybe this was the distraction they needed. "Walker!" Dad shouted. Mr. Walker shut the backhoe down and pushed the trucker's cap back from his sweaty forehead. "Ernst Albright," he said. "What a pleasant surprise. What in the hell are you doing? Digging a trench? Why? Electricity for town. I'm putting in a generator." "What?" Mr. Walker said it again, pronouncing electricity with care, as if speaking to someone who barely understood English. "What if we don't want electricity in Canuck? I bought easements from every business in town, Ernst, paid cash money from people who want lights and refrigerators and heat in the winter. Oh, and street lamps. Won't that be great? I won't let you. What are you going to do? Spray paint again? I wouldn't recommend it. I won't be so forgiving a second time." Leanie came up behind Mama, grabbed her sleeve, tried to pull her away, while Dad was fixated on something else. "Leanie!" Matthew's voice rang out. He was standing in front of the saloon holding a big cardboard box. "Help us!" she screamed. Dad grabbed Leanie by the bicep and pulled her against him. "You think you need help? What for?" She shook her head, croaked, "Nothing. I didn't mean it." She glanced at Matthew, who had put down the box and was coming toward them, stepping down from the boardwalk.
"You'd better tell that boy to stop walking or so help me God." Dad put a hand on the knife at his waist. "I'm fine," she yelled to Matthew, but she could see that he didn't believe her. He saw that she was crying. "Stay there. Tell your dad we're okay." Matthew said her name. She saw it form on his lips, but couldn't hear it. Dad tightened his grip on Lenny's upper arm until it felt like pliers clamping down. He guided Lenny and Mama back to the truck, shoved them inside, slammed the door shut behind them. It took less than 2 minutes, all of it. The arrival in town, the scene, the shouted plea to help us, and the return to the truck. All the way home, Dad muttered under his breath. The only words she got were liar and Walker. Mama held Lenny's hand as they bounced over the rutted road and turned onto their land. Lenny tried to think of a way to calm her dad down. What had made her cry out like that? She knew better than to ask for help. Love and fear, the most destructive forces on earth. Fear had turned her inside out. Love had made her stupid. Dad drove through the open gate, still muttering to himself. Lenny thought, when he gets out to close the gate, I'll grab the wheel and put the truck in reverse and stomp on the gas. But he left the gate open behind him. Open. They could run in the middle of the night. In the clearing, he threw the gear shift into park and killed the engine, then grabbed Lenny and pulled her across the grass and up the steps and across the deck. He shoved her into the cabin so hard she stumbled and fell. Mama came up behind him, moving cautiously, her face studiously calm. How she could pull that off, Lenny didn't know. "Ernst, you're overreacting. Please, let's talk about this." She laid a hand on his shoulder.
"Do you think you need help, Cora?" he said in a strangely taut voice. "She's young. She didn't mean anything by it." Lenny saw the violence of his breathing, the way his fingers spasmed. He was on the balls of his feet, energy pouring out of him, anger transforming him. "You're lying to me," he said. Mama shook her head. "No, I'm not. I don't even know what you mean." "It's always the walkers," he muttered. "Ernst, this is crazy." He hit her so hard she slammed into the wall. Before Mama could get to her feet, he was on her again, yanking her hair back, exposing the pale skin of her throat. Wrapping his hand in her hair, he smashed his fist down, cracked the side of her head on the floor. Lenny hurled herself at her father, landed on his back. She clawed at him, pulled his hair, screamed, "Let her go!" He wrenched free, cracked Mama's forehead into the floor. Lenny heard the door open behind her. Seconds later, she was yanked off her dad. She got a glimpse of Matthew, saw him pull Dad off Mama, spin him around and punch him in the jaw so hard, Dad staggered sideways and crumpled to his knees. Lenny ran to her mother, helped her to her feet. "We need to go, now." "You go," Mama said, looking nervously toward Dad, who moaned in pain. "Go." Her face was bloodied, her lip torn. "I'm not leaving you," Lenny said. Tears filled Mama's eyes and fell, mixing with the blood. "He'll never let me go. You go. Go." "No," Lenny said. "I'm not leaving you." "She's right, Mrs. Albright," Matthew said. "You can't stay here." Mama sighed. "Fine. I'll go to Large Marge's. She'll protect me. But Lenny, I don't want you anywhere near me, you understand? If he comes after me, I don't want you there." She looked to Matthew. "I want her gone for at least 24 hours. Hidden someplace he can't find her. I'll go to the police this time. Press charges." Matthew nodded solemnly. "I won't let anything happen to her, Mrs. Albright, I promise." Dad made a groaning sound, cursed, tried to get up. Mama hefted up Lenny's bug-out bag and handed her the pack. "Now, Lenny, we need to run." They ran out of the cabin and into the bright sunlit yard toward Matthew's truck. "Get in," he yelled, then raced over to Dad's truck. He opened the hood, did something to the engine. Behind them, the cabin door cracked open. Dad staggered out. Lenny heard the cracking sound of a gun being cocked. "Cora, damn it!" Dad was on the deck, bleeding profusely from his forehead, blinded by blood, holding a shotgun. "Where are you?" "Get in!" yelled Matthew, throwing something into the trees. He jumped into the driver's seat and started his truck. In a spray of shotgun pellets, pinging loudly, Lenny leaped onto the seat, and Mama crammed in beside her. Matthew jammed the gear shift into drive and stomped on the gas. The truck fishtailed in the deep grass before the wheels grabbed hold. He sped down the driveway and through the open gate and turned onto the main road. They turned again at Large Marge's driveway and drove to the end of it, honking the horn. "You keep her safe and away from me," Mama said to Matthew, who nodded. Lenny stared at her mother. The whole of their lives and all of their love was in that look. "You won't go back to him," Lenny said. "You'll call the police, press charges. We'll meet up in 24 hours. Then we'll run away. You promise?" Mama nodded, hugged her fiercely, kissed her tears away. "Go," she said in a sharp voice. After Mama got out of the truck and they drove away, Lenny sat there, replaying it all in her mind, crying quietly. Every breath hurt, and she had to fight the urge to go back, to be with her mother. Had she done the wrong thing by leaving her? Matthew turned at the Walker gate, rumbled beneath the welcoming arch. "We can't go here. He'll look for us here," Lenny said. "Mama said we needed to disappear for a day." He parked,
got out. I know, but it's low tide. We can't use the boats or the float plane. I only know one place to disappear. Stay here. 5 minutes later, Matthew was back with a backpack, which he tossed into the bed of the truck. Lenny kept looking behind them, down the Walker driveway. Don't worry, he won't find the distributor cap for a while, Matthew said. And they were off again, turning onto the main road, then left toward the mountain. Turns, switchbacks, river crossings. Up and up they went. Finally, they pulled into a dirt parking lot and stopped abruptly. There were no other vehicles. A sign at the trailhead read, Bear Claw Wilderness Area. Allowable uses. Hiking, camping, rock climbing. Distance, 2.8 miles one way. Difficulty, challenging, steep climbs. Elevation game, 2,600 feet. Camping, Sawtooth Ridge near Marked Eagle Creek Crossing.
Matthew helped Lenny out of the truck. Kneeling, he checked her waffle stompers, retied her laces. You okay? What if She got away. Large Marge will protect her, and she wanted you safe. I know. Let's go, she said dully. We've got a long hike ahead of us. Can you make it? Lenny nodded. They headed for the trail, with Matthew leading and Lenny following along behind him, struggling to keep up. They climbed for hours, saw no one. The trail snaked along a sheer stone cliff. Below them was the sea, waves crashing into rocks. The ground trembled at each wave's impact. Or maybe Lenny just thought it did because life felt so unstable now. Even the ground felt unreliable. Finally, Matthew came to what he'd been looking for, a huge grassy field, thick with purple lupine. Snow whitened the peaks. Below lay folds of rock, dotted here and there by the white dots that were doll sheep. He dropped his pack into the grass and turned to face Lenny. He handed her a smoked salmon sandwich and a can of warm Coke, and while she ate, he set up a pup tent deep in the grass. Later, with a fire crackling in front of the tent and the orange flaps pinned open, Matthew sat on the grass beside her. He put an arm around her. She leaned into him. You don't have to be the only one protecting her, you know. We'll all take care of you. It's always been that way in Connect. Lenny wanted that to be true. She wanted to believe there was a safe place for her and Mama, a do-over of their lives, a beginning that didn't rise from the ashes of a violent, terrible ending. Mostly, she didn't want to feel solely responsible for her Mama's safety anymore. She turned to Matthew, loving him so much, so desperately, it felt like she was being held underwater and needed oxygen. I love you. Me too. Up here, in the vastness of Alaska, the words sounded infinitesimal and small, a fist shaken at the gods.